Good evening and welcome to the Magpie Circle podcast. I think everybody is happy at the moment. Unbeaten start to the season in the top three promotion places, and a seasonal debut for Chloe Page. Firstly, Chloe, good to have you back.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on again.
Well, it was by popular demand because your fan club have been asking for you to appear, so you are back. And Stell, good to have you back on board again. Everything is looking quite rosy at the moment. A quick few thoughts from our flock before we debate the win on Saturday. A trip to Bromley, and it'd be nice to see the green grass of Bromley rather than an artificial pitch as well. Alan Dowson, a very good evening, feeling positive about this season. Was shocked to not see Crowley and Jones playing, but what a game. What a defence we have now. And what can I say about Didsey, apart from he's a star? And Alan was in on the show at 6:30 this evening to post that message. That's how quickly you've got to get on, a half hour before we even start. Mark Bradley, evening everyone. Great to see the strength in depth of our squad. Didn't want to get too carried away, but very excited for the rest of the season. Young Mr. Abbott, we'll be talking about him shortly, looks like he's going to be some player. Evening from Paul Huskerson, Richard Terry from the happy Woodborough Magpies, Tim Watchon, good evening all. Not felt so positive about everything for years. Will be at Bromley even if I have to walk there. Gary Scott, evening all, agree, starting to feel quietly optimistic about this season. Adam Kent, great result at the weekend, but did anyone else feel the atmosphere was a bit flat at times? Maybe we were so good it made the match a tad uneventful. Adam Kent couldn't get tickets for Bromley. They must have sold out pretty fast. Evening from Pythagorean, who is off to Bromley. Hopefully this time we are now a match for their physicality. Hope to remain unbeaten come Saturday evening. Royston says Saturday's performance was workmanlike and we got the job done. Evening from John Parnham, Stephen Newton, Kay, Robbie Stevenson, Karen Knight, and from Ian Cooksey, who adds great results Saturday. The squad is showing its depth. Evening from Richard Elvian, Ian Hayward, Martin Blaney, Trevor Robinson, John Parnham. I might be wrong, but if Bromley wants to move on in the league, they surely need a huge amount of investment and they need a bigger ground. It doesn't surprise me that there are so few away tickets. Essie Kent, evening. Kay, not looking good for Kedwin. Picked up an injury at the end of the game. Obviously, confidence a little bit low. We feel for him. Evening, Trevor Robinson, Kenneth Pointer, Gaza Lee, who was just raised back from Wilmslow to tune into the show. Evening from Pete Cowlishaw, another great performance, and with some of the squad out, season looking good. AD Clark, the Derbyshire branch of the Chloe Page Supporters Club. Evening all, great to see Chloe back. Thumbs up emoji. Plenty more to come. Stel, let's start with you. We were just talking about this before the show. 1 point better off than last season. Small sample size, I know. Top three unbeaten. Compare and contrast with last year.
Look, yeah, you're right. Early stages. I don't get, people who know me know I'm not bothered about the league tables and things like that. It's about your performances. It's about picking up them points. As we have done. The two stats I'm interested in is getting around that 2 points per game marker. Again, very early stage, but if you're there, you're promoted, obviously. And what is the improvement? And you take compare and contrast to last season. I think the improvement is that goals against column. I think that is the one that needed addressing. And again, 5 games in, it's not solved, it's not sorted, but the signs are good. The signs are positive, early signs. I think it's 4 conceded in 5 games. If they can keep that below a goal a game, then you're going to be in that mix. So, yeah, really good start. 3 wins on the spin now. Got to keep that going.
Chloe, there was a rumour doing around you with the Charlie Colcutt of the Magpie Circle, as we've not seen much of you, but you've been busy at virtually all of the games. Your overview of the season so far?
I mean, we can't really complain, can we? We've not lost a game so far. I think going to Tranmere first game, I was quite happy with it. I know a few people were maybe not so, but to me, it was a decent start, and it looks like a good point.
Oh, we're having one or two problems. Chloe's froze. Obviously, the Wi-Fi connection's a bit rusty at the moment up into Lancashire. Maybe Chloe will dial out and come back in again. Stel, hopefully you can hear me and we can hear you. Yeah, I mean, clearly the massive difference, albeit a not dissimilar points return, is that we are much stronger, appearing to be now, defensively wise. I thought one of the key takeaways from Saturday was we seemed much more. I thought we were quite efficient and resilient. And as much as we love Grimsby, yeah, you don't win 30 games like you play against Grimsby. And I think we drew the analogy in a previous show with a Mansfield, Stockport, Wrexham. Well, although we didn't grind it out Saturday, it was very, for me, it was very efficient and organised and structured. And as opposed to this phrase we often use when we have 83%, we control the ball. I thought we controlled the game.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with that. And I would say efficiency. You're right with efficient, but that's not meant. That can have sort of boring, negative connotations to it. But I thought we were efficient, and that goes right from the start when we all heard the team used. No Jody, no Dan Crowley, and I know imagine the sort of furore that would have been if that had been prior to the deadline. If they'd have both been missing the week before the deadline as opposed to a week or so afterwards. But the fact that, the team was changed, it showed the strength of the squad. Players have got to come in. Players had to come in and play in unfamiliar positions. And, George Abbott, I think we'll speak about, of course, but Connor Grant, Curtis Edwards, players, Jack Hinchy, players that have just come, not been here too long, all played as if they'd been here for a while, and even to the likes of Sam Austin having to play, left wing back. I know he's versatile. I know he'll do everything he can, whatever position he plays in. But I thought you're right, it was efficient with what you would call a less than strongest first team, if you like. With Jody and Dan Crowley out, I looked at it and thought, well, the players are all efficient, proficient with the ball, good technically. Where's that bit of magic coming from? But it came from David McGoldrick out of some of the players. But everybody played their part, and it was an efficient, controlled performance. And I think a word as well for Stuart Maynard and the coaching staff, because with all that many players and that much change and upheaval, it could have been a real disjointed sort of team and performance. It wasn't. So it goes to show that the amount of work that's being done and that the practices, the patterns of play that they like are being drilled into players so that when they get into the team, they know what's expected of them.
Magpie Circle calling Lancashire. Chloe, do you read us loud and clear? How's that Wi-Fi?
I don't know how long my Wi-Fi is going to keep me in, but I'll keep giving it a go.
So look, you've not missed many this season. One or two people have raised a question or two about atmosphere. I mean, it was a declared attendance of 10,000 again. I thought it's pretty decent. There weren't too many spare spaces around where I sit these days. I think everyone was pretty happy, weren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you'll see that keep coming every week. We've got a good set of season ticket holders. We've got a good away following. So that'll come with these improved performances. I think people didn't know what to expect at the start of the season. Tranmere was a little bit of a weird game, but I don't know if you caught me saying earlier that I was happy with that performance. And I came away with it happy. And at this moment in time, it looks like a good point to how Tranmere have been doing as well. They haven't lost either. So I think as long as we keep doing what we're doing now, and obviously we've got players to come back and the crowd will be back on the side. But like you say, everybody's pretty happy at the minute. There's no reason not to be.
Wayne Wilkins, here he goes. Evening all from Barcelona. Great start, past every test so far. The next is to be able to be unbeaten in the next 2 games against top 10 teams who have made decent starts. Magpie says, I'm in the away end at Bromley. God help me when we score. I like the use of the word when. Lippy Jane, it was flat a little bit, but I don't know why. Perhaps no competition from the away fans. A solid game on Saturday, says John Parnham. It proves that if we don't have our top scorers, Didsey accepted, we can still put up a good fight. Lee Atkins, liking the young lad from Spurs, good little player we have there. Kay says, I don't think the music blaring out at the start of the match always helps. Totally drowns out any singing for the players. I don't like it, nor Depeche Mode. AC/DC should be being belted out, shouldn't it, Stel?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a rock man, so yeah, I don't mind a bit of Depeche Mode though either. I'm a bit of all sorts.
Oh dear. Rich Hawksworth, evening all. Super performance again with 5 first choice players out. Wayne from Barcelona, obviously, adds last season after 6 games, Notts had 13 points. The difference, how much more robust and resilient we are and more balanced to show that we potentially demonstrate this for the season's entirety. Ian G, Didsey flourishing in the role he likes to play, and the one he had at Derby, now Macca's gone. David Skinner, hello from Hornchurch. The defence floods back together when the other side attack, as opposed to them coming back in drips and drabs. And for all the people, leads me on to, I needed a plumber badly in the Mace household on Friday. I did put out an appeal. Your granddad, to be fair, Chloe, did come in with 2 plumbers, but I had managed to sort something out in the end. So thank you to everyone. Richard Hawksworth, our defensive capability is like night and day compared to last season. Ian G, the biggest miracle was Accrington keeping 11 players on the pitch. I don't know how many yellows they had. I lost count after about 7. Evening all, good performance again, says George Hilton. Dave Woolley joins us a little bit late. An historical lesson from Wayne Wilkins on music and Depeche Mode. Martin Blaney should have come out to Tina Turner, simply the best, like the old days. 6 yellows, says Wayne. Right, glad you were counting from Barcelona, obviously. Stel, let's talk George Abbott. In the modern game, I think there is an increasing, if not reliance, importance placed on getting good loan players, particularly in the lower divisions. And 1 or 2 good loan players can really change your season and the way you operate. Very early days, but I think George Abbott has got a lot of plaudits in his first 90. What were your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I'll echo everything I think most people are going to say about him. It was an impressive first full game. You're right. Players like George Abbott, and we've had quite a few of them over the years, haven't we? You're only ever going to get on loan. You know, teams like Spurs are not looking to sell him now. He's got potential, so they're not looking to get rid. So the only way you get a George Abbott in the building is by taking him on loan. So, you know, he's coming, but it's even, you know, he came on a sort of 5 minutes, 10 minutes at Swindon the week before. But I think, you know, Saturday, what impressed me amongst a lot of things was he did simple things well, you know, efficient. He got around the game, liked to tackle, you know, did a bit of everything in the middle of the park. But the whole package was just how comfortable he seemed. You know, normally as a 19-year-old, you can come in, new club, big crowd, if you like, that you're not particularly used to playing in front of, even though he come from Spurs. And you can feel a little bit daunted. You think, oh, I'll just try and float around the periphery of the game, not try and get, you know, not have to get involved too much. You can't do that in Notts. You have to be on the ball. And he said afterwards about he appreciated all the lads trusted him in possession of the ball. But you earn that trust, and he earns that in the first 10, 15 minutes by looking assured, looking competent. He's obviously got talent. He's got ability. It was a really, really impressive first 90 minutes for such a young lad. Like
the look of him, Chloe?
Yeah, definitely. I wasn't sure what kind of player we were going to get. Obviously, I know he's captains there under 21s, and like Stal says, Spurs must see something in them. I didn't know whether we were going to get an Ed Francis type of player who quite clearly hadn't played much men's football, and it was more how I expected academy footballers to be, a little bit lightweight, not wanting to tackle. Obviously, with Francis, I think, being at Manchester City before. But he surprised me in the best way possible. He walked into the team, he looked like he's been there for weeks. And just like Stal says, confident, comfortable, and wasn't afraid to put a tackle in. I think a lot of the reasons as to why they picked up 6 yellows is we were just too quick for them, and that's credit to him. It's credit to all the lads, really. But yeah, I was definitely surprised in a good way, and it'll show you that Palmer won't walk straight back into this team. Robertson as well. We've obviously got Hinchy, so we've got a few players after the same positions, and it's good to see that we've got composition now and younger legs. So it'll be nice to see if he starts to get a few games under his belts, not necessarily starting, but I mean, he's come on, like Sal says, in the Swindon game, and then the next game he's in. So you've got to take your chance, and he's definitely done that and proven that he can slot straight into the team.
Stephen Newton agrees. Abbott plays with his head up and always on the move. Very impressive. Tell you what I quite liked about him. A lot of the time when you get these Premier League young loan players, by definition, they've not necessarily played a lot of what you would call men's football, because to an extent it's all under 21, under 23. And they're always very good technically on the ball, but sometimes the physical rigors of the game is something they need to acclimatise to. And I thought he got his foot in, he won the ball back, he broke the play up, kept things simple. Reminded me very early, just a little bit of Ryan Yates. I remember when we got Ryan Yates and George Grant in that season, we got into the playoffs, and I think at first everybody thought George Grant was the star of the two. I always had a little sneaky feeling that Ryan could potentially play higher up, and that's been proven at Forest, because he again was not necessarily a conventional Premier League young player. And I think ultimately our season fell apart when he left. Look, we mustn't big them up too much, but we've signed in the past quite a few loan players, and we've hardly ever seen them. I suspect we'll be seeing quite a bit more of Mr. George Abbott. And of course, that will then lead it on to who do we play in the team? Because clearly with senior players out, those that came in on Saturday absolutely did a great job, Stell. It's the age-old argument, isn't it? In the Jurassic era, you, certainly me, a winning team stays the same. That kind of mantra has changed now. Would you be of an opinion that if the senior players, your Crowleys, your Jones, throw Jatta in, do they automatically get back in after that?
Yeah, I mean, that is a massive question, isn't it? We were debating this last week, weren't we, about whether David McGoldrick was going to start.
Yeah.
But we assumed Jatta was going to be fit. He wasn't available. And again, you back to the same point. Does Stuart Maynard now stick with this and say to Jody and Dan Crowley, well, you've got to work your way back into the team? Ordinarily, I would always say, yeah, you don't really change a winning team. But when you've got players like Crowley and Jody Jones, I think with the amount of credit they've got in the bank, in terms of performance levels, I'm not talking about what they've done, or they played well, or they've had a better career 6 months ago, or they are just more established players. It's what they've done 2 weeks ago and 3 weeks ago, and so far this season. I think I might make an exception. Not a complete exception, but I think you've got them sort of players. You've got a decision to make, but you're always wanting to pick your strongest team. So it may well be that, and again, assuming that they're both fit, I think we'd all be surprised if they both didn't start against Bromley. For as well as Sam Austin did as a left wing back, you would imagine that fit Jody, having only missed one game, would come straight back in. Dan Crowley as well. You would assume and take your pick out of who he replaces, but it might be George Abbott, but it might be Connor Grant, it might be Curtis Edwards. But I think we'd all start them. I think they've been that good so far this season. I think we'd all bring them straight back in after one game. If it was maybe 2, 3, 4 games, and it'd be a bit longer. Then it might be a case of, well, you go on the bench and we'll get you some minutes and build yourself back up. You don't walk straight back in. But if they are fit, and we certainly hope they are, because you want as many to choose from, then it's a bit of a pleasant headache for Stuart Maynard.
What do we think, Flock? Would anyone keep the same team? Would you automatically bring Jones and Crowley straight back into the lineup? Let us know your thoughts. And while you're tapping away on the keyboards, Chloe, you are Notts County manageress or head coach. What would you be doing?
It's a nice headache, of course it is. But they're the two players, like Stav was saying, that we were wanting to keep hold of, especially after Langstaff went. I do think the good thing is that quite clearly we've got more depth now. And if they're not quite ready, we don't need to rush them back. We're not in a situation where we got rolled over and we're desperate for two of our best players to come back. We can ease them back into it if needs be, obviously depending what the knocks are. But yeah, and I think it just shows that Stuart Maynard's got the confidence by not even having them on the bench, really. It's interesting to say that, like I think somebody mentioned in the comments there, that we've got some of the sides that are performing. Oh, my back.
Keep going. We'll hook you we'll put the subs board up if we need to get rid on you.
But yeah, I just think that if they're not ready to come back, they can come off the bench. We don't need to rush them back. We've quite clearly shown that we've got the players and they'll play well. But like somebody said in the comments, we've got some of the teams coming up that have started performing already this season, whereas the likes of Accrington, they didn't really put much past us in the end. So it will be interesting to see what he does. But like Stal says, it's hard to have somebody like Jody Jones and Dan Crowley in your team and not be picking them ahead of somebody that's played a good couple of games for us. So I'd expect them to see them both in if they are 100% fit. But if not, see what we can do again.
Hold the thought about Matty Palmer before I forget it. Alzheimer's and I forget things now, Stel. But let's just get a few thoughts from the flock. George Abbott has the same buzz, says Ian G, about him as Jack Grealish did, destined for great things at the highest level. There you are. I don't know whether George is listening to this in his hotel room somewhere. No pressure, son. No pressure at all. It was a great win, says Twilight Audio ASMR. Is that a free plug for some communications or broadcasting company? Great win, but a bit of a quiet stadium in the second half. James, as I thought, Makari and Cerula have a good connection down the right. Shows how many options we have in different positions. Tarula looked impressive, Ian G says, in his first game coming on a sub. Not seen that much since. Oh dear. Wayne Wilkins, we're so much quicker in transition after losing the ball. It's like Mortal Kombat. If you get through the midfield, then you get a boss. I don't understand that. Brackets the defense. If you get through that, you get the end base. Well, I'm sure people that play Mortal Kombat will understand that. It's beyond me, I am afraid. Evening all from Stuart Smith. Happy days so far. So pleased for Stuart and his staff. We'll come on to Stuart in a moment. Jones, right, okay. Ian G, Jones and Crowley back in, Jatta on the bench. Ian Hayward, bring them both back into the team. Rich Hawksworth, they have to start Bromley away, one of the most difficult games of the season. Andy Easom, assuming they are fit for Bromley, yes, feel for Kedwin if he has a spell on the sidelines out again. Rich Hawksworth still need to look after Didsey. Sooner or later, he will need to be rested. Evening from ZO, I guess fitness of JJ and DC will influence starting lineup. I expect it to be physical at Bromley, so that may also be an influence. Bob H, Jones and Crowley in for Hinchy and Austin. Richard Terry, you would believe it. The Woodburn Magpies have inadvertently been watching the old episode with Joe and Richard. That must be an in thing. Andy Easom, Giovanni Edwards becomes somewhat more of a key figure now. Stel, I think I remember. We were talking Matty Palmer. Before a ball was kicked, Matty Palmer has to play. We have to get him straight into the team. When he plays, we win. When he doesn't, we don't win anywhere near as many games. But picking up on the point that Chloe made a moment or two ago, they're not rushing Matty Palmer back at all, are they? Because he's been on the bench for a few games. They're kind of clearly bringing him back gradually, but they're not. But the management team are not just rushing back to pick what many would consider to be one of the singular most influential players the club has.
No, absolutely. They're being careful with him, which would they be as careful if we'd have lost 5 on the spin? I don't think they would have been. I think he'd have been back in. But again, results dictate things like that. And that's not a criticism, by the way. Results dictate everything in football. So Matty Palmer had a real serious injury last season. And he is, I absolutely agree, he's one of, if not our best players, despite all the quality we've got, certainly one of our most influential, when he's fully fit. But what you don't want to do is rush him back in at the expense of, well, it's Matty Palmer, we've got to get him in. Matty Palmer fully fit, fully up to max speed, he's one of the best players in the division. Matty Palmer, if he's just getting back up to speed and not got the minutes in his legs, needs managing. He was out for the best part of a year. So, you've always got to be careful with things like that, that the reputation of the player shouldn't really take precedence over, nurturing and carefully bringing somebody back from that long-term injury. Because again, I think the stats say you're more susceptible to pick up other injuries, when you're coming back. So I think the beauty of winning games, amongst other things, is it affords them, Stuart and the head coaching staff and the physio side of things, it affords them time that we're not in a position where we've lost 3 on the spin and it's, I want to play Matty Palmer, I've got to play Matty Palmer, he's got to be out there for us for 90 minutes. No, we can bide that time. And as frustrating it might be for Matty Palmer as well, I think he'll appreciate that in the long run. You always want the short-term wins, of course you do. But there's a longer term aim at the end of this season. Promotion is the aim, so Matty Palmer, like I said about David McGoldrick, Matty Palmer will play a huge, huge role in it. He is the skipper. He's got the armband. So when he's ready, I have no doubt he will be back in the team and he'll be playing week in, week out, as long as he is fit. But you don't want to risk him an 80% Matty Palmer picking up a niggle that's going to keep him out for 3 weeks. And he ends up having one of these sort of stop and start seasons. That's what you don't want after you've spent almost all of last season out.
Ian G, quite a nice little soundbite. Our superior back 3 over the one from last season has made the rationing of Matty Palmer's minutes an easier decision. Yeah, that's quite eloquently put. Andy Esom, on the back of what has happened to Bajrami at Burton, slowly is fine for me. And Chris Gosling's pulled a stat out. I'm sure if it's not right, others will point it out. We've still not conceded a goal with Palmer on the pitch. There you go. Stuart Smith got to start with Didsey. He's a match winner. Chloe, have we got to pick David McGoldrick next week? 4 goals in 2 games. The quality of the 4 strikes, pretty impressive.
It's hard not to. And like you mentioned earlier, it's kind of a role that he's played before and he's quite clearly still good enough at 36 years old. It's hard to anybody that's in that much form. And like you say, almost every goal has come from outside the box as well. They're all quality finishers. And I didn't get to watch the Swindon game, but by all accounts, it was moments of quality like that win you the game. So he's hard to drop at the minute. And I like to see him further forward. I like to see him in the box. I don't like him to come all the way back to the halfway line to collect it off defenders. I want him in and around that box and showing what he can do. And like you say, it's great to see somebody that did start with us end with us and on a high. He's not just come for his retirement package, and it's great to see that he's still in form. So long may it continue.
Sometimes in life, not just as a footballer, Stel, it can in a way be easier to prove people wrong than prove people right. Given that Didsey, be wrong to say peripheral figure, but all the indications at the start of the season were that he wasn't going to be starting games. And it's as a result of concussion protocols with Alessandro Jatta. He's found himself up front, up top, 4 goals later. Are you surprised at all or not?
Surprised that he scored goals? No, not one little bit. He's got quality. He is quality. You can see where he's been in his career, and even in recent years, what levels he's achieved. To know that he can play at this level. Of course he can. He's got the quality, and when he plays as that central striker for Notts, which he didn't have the chance to at all, I don't think, last season. He was always withdrawn on the left-hand side because of Maka. He was having to fulfill a different role slightly, obviously. Any doubts? None whatsoever. Like I say, he's got quality. It's not even a question whether he plays Saturday, unless he's got a knock. I mean, you asked me after Swindon, does he stay or does Jatta come back in? Well, 2 in 1 was enough for me to keep him in. 4 in 2, he's definitely staying in. He's making Macaulay look like he was his goal ratio was pretty poor at less than 2 a game. So yeah, I mean, he starts Saturday. I don't think he needs a rest now. The games are Saturday. Well, they are now Saturday weekly. You've got a week in between to manage him. There will come a time when he probably does need a rest, of course. But yeah, not a question for me. He starts Saturday.
Chris Gosling, we'll pick our team based on the opposition. That, I think, was a quote from Stuart Maynard in his interview with us at the start of the season. Bromley are a very physical team. Who would be better against that defence, Jatta or Didsey, or do we accommodate both? My simplistic approach, Chris, will be the one that scores goals, and I don't care how he scores them. And if the world is like that, all the better. I think he's joint top scorer at the minute in League Two. His goals per minute, the minute ratio must be the best in League Two. It's got to be. It's got to be, because then he started 2, hasn't he? So ironic, says Zedo, that Didsey goals, 1 from outside the box, brackets Maka, but it looks so different as the number 9. You scored plenty like them that Didsey's got, didn't you, Still?
What, them deflected ones? Yeah, I got a couple of them.
I tell you what, I assume that he has a way of, from that sort of 20-25 yards, he seems to have a way of striking the ball, doesn't he? And kind of, I don't know if he wraps his foot round, clips it, whatever you want to call it, but sort of angling them with a bit of an arc into those top corners. That ain't luck. That's years, I suspect, of practice.
Yeah, I tell you all the time, don't I? And again, I've got a vested interest as the old strikers union, but yeah, it's not luck when somebody keeps finding the back of the net, whether it's from 2 yards or 22 yards. He's got fantastic technique. He's got fantastic ability. Again, that's why he plays at the high, or has played at the high levels that he has done, and that's why he continues to play. Now well into his 30s. So he's got fantastic ability. No real special technique, just really, really well honed ability and technique. And like I say, if he can keep striking them like he has done for the last couple of games, then he's on to a heck of a season.
Adam Kent, great to see Macaulay and others attending matches. He's near. He should buy a season ticket number of games he's at the minute. Dale Pikett. Here we go. We have taken 1 point in 4 visits to Bromley. I've been to all 4. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I can't think. Certainly can't remember was winning there, and got bullied every time we have played there. But this team will not get bullied on Saturday, says Dale. Chloe, you've made a visit or 2 down to Bromley, haven't you, before?
Yeah, definitely. And like they say, we've got bullied a few times. So I haven't got a ticket for the game. So I won't be there for this one. Unless I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it with being all the way from up here. But I'll be keeping track and seeing what we do. And like you say, if we can play quick football like we have been doing, these kind of every every way that we can get in there. And like you say, we shouldn't be getting bullied now. So especially with the new defence that we've got and the young lads that we've got in the team, McGoldrick up front, it's a recipe for hopefully 3 points.
A goal every 51 minutes for Didsy, says Rich Hawksworth. He's got his little abacus out to work that one out. For those of us who are at Bromley on Saturday, we're behind the goal, I believe, now. I was talking to ticket officers, I was collecting my tickets today. So they've moved things around. And I know quite a few of you have also been saying, how come have we only got 490 when they're capacity is about 5, and they only even got 4,000 something for Wimbledon. I believe it's something to do with the difference between capacity and the safety certificate that they've been awarded. Now they're back in the Football League. So we used to stand all down the side, didn't we? Do you remember? And Andy Woodman, I seem to remember, used to get dogs abuse stood in the dugout in front of all the Notts fans down the side. But I think they've reconfigured the ground a little bit now. But although it can hold, I don't know, best part of 5,000, the safety certificate is different in the way that Notts have got best part of 20,000 seats, but they can only let in 17,000. So that, I believe, is why we've got such a small allocation. 12-1 for Didsy to be to the top League Two goal scorer this season. These odds were slashed over the weekend, says Ian G. David Skinner, with Jones and Crawley back, the new defence to boot, I'm looking forward to us beating the Bromley boys away for the first time. I'm behind the goal, but the home goal. Stel, Bromley, not one of our happier hunting grounds. Bromley playing a certain way, it's got them promotion. No issues with me. Do you foresee, a searching examination in the way that Bromley will play against Notts and goalkeeper, back line, long throws, those sorts of things?
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an examination and a test. Again, you never know at League Two level what performance is going to come out of a team any given weekend. So, it's again early part of the season. They won their first 2 games back in the league, didn't they? Then lost 2, and they drew again on Saturday. So, they've had a middling sort of start to the season. But I think you know what you're going to get. I think I've done a little bit of looking already, but I think they play back 3 like we do, similar sort of shape to the way we normally go about it. So it's going to be a tough test because they will ask questions. In Michael Cheek, they've got a striker up front. I think he scored a couple, 2 or 3 already this season, who knows where the back of the net is. He's scored goals wherever he's played, really, at whatever level. So they'll pose a threat. There'll be a threat at set pieces. So again, every game is an examination. It's the first time we've played there on grass, so it'll be interesting to see what the pitch is like. Probably a good time to get them earlier. You don't know how these new grass pitches go on as the season goes on. So I imagine it's still in decent nick, almost perfect nick at this stage. So it's interesting. It doesn't strike me as the big pitch when we've been to Bromley before as well. So I don't know if that could be an issue as well. We'll wait and see when we get down there. But it's always going to be a test. You can never take anybody lightly. And, I'm sure they will give us more of a challenge than Accrington did at the weekend. I thought they were poor, really, Accrington. I thought as good as Notts were, and we didn't let them have much. I thought Accrington were poor.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have a lot of admiration for what Bromley have done. I know sometimes when you're the big club and we've got the 10,000, sometimes fan bases can be disparaging. You've only get this non-league club. But I think, fair play to Andy Woodman, because was he offered the Hartlepool and maybe the Gillingham jobs, turned them both down when they were in the National League, and he's got his rewards by taking Bromley into the Football League, and I don't think they will have too many problems staying up this year. Look, I've not seen them live or anything, but I think they'll be comfortably halfway this year in a first season back up. Like you say, I wasn't massively impressed with Accrington. Morecambe have clearly got a lot of problems off the pitch as well, financially. But no, I have a lot of admiration. I just hope we don't get into this. We've got 10,000 average home gate. Yours is 3,000. Blah blah blah. You haven't got to stand all of that because it's the old adage of 11 v 11. Clubby, let's talk Stuart Maynard, his coaching staff. Look, we all know he had a very difficult time last season. 5 in, I don't know, 18, 19 games. We must give him credit because he will have known the pressure was on. He will have known the pressure was on going into this season. And to be where we are after 5 games, clearly credit goes to the players, but I think credit must go to the head coach and his coaching staff as well. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. And at the same time, people like that we've got at the club, like Richard Montague and the people that are bringing the players in, because it's all been very harmonious by the sounds of it. They've brought in the right players, and I imagine he will have still had something to say about that. And they've come in and they've played his style of football, and we've got results. So, look, I can't fault him. It was a very difficult time to come into a club as kind of like you're saying before, as big as what we are, with the gates that we get still in League Two, and you're coming into a situation that the fans loved the last coach, the last head coach, the last manager, and they were the ones that left us. So you're coming into an awkward situation, whereas most of the times you're coming in when the crowds are down and they want something fresh, so they get behind the new manager. Obviously, then results didn't go our way. We ended up petering out about halfway and people weren't happy. I think the summer that we had in signings have got people back on side. We could see in parts of last season what we were trying to do. And at the start of this season, he's shown what he can do. And I've listened to a couple of interviews with him, and he said, look, it's going to be a little bit of a slow burner with how we work as a coaching team. And it wasn't going to happen straight away overnight when he did come in. But I think he's proven, like you said earlier about McGoldrick, proving people wrong. Obviously, we had not a slow start to the season, but we obviously had the Tranmere draw. And we had chances in the game, but I think people would have liked to have obviously have seen us win that game. And whereas I took a few more positives than maybe some people, we then went to Shrewsbury and lost that game from looking like world beaters in that first half. And I was sat next to you, Paul, and we were eyeing up who we could get in the next round and where it was going to go. And then it all kind of
fell were at half time.
Yeah. It all fell a little bit flatter in the second half. But again, you've got to realise we were playing a League One team. And then obviously we took them to penalties and we lost. And that was the end of that cup run. And I think people were disappointed because we haven't been on a cup run for such a long time that it did feel like a really good opportunity. So it maybe wasn't the real kickstart to the season to really get fans on board. But as we've been 5 or 6 games into the season now with that cup game as well, no one's complaining at the moment. We're not shipping goals in for fun. We're still creating. We've still kept hold of virtually all of our best players and we've strengthened. So I think as long as it keeps going like this, people are bound to be happy. You've got your big crowds coming in and that'll continue. I mean, again, I wasn't at the Grimsby game. I watched from abroad with it being on TV, but I believe there was still 10,000 there on a Thursday night. And I know obviously Grimsby do tend to bring a lot even midweek, but it's still great figures and it does great things for the club, especially with the Nest as well, pulling in great figures as we've gone on. So it's all extra revenue for the club. And again, we've got to be the 12th man this season and we'll carry them through.
Greetings from Brussels, says Rudy Hulsman. Evening, Rudy. Good to hear from you. We've not heard from Dimitri in Podgorica, Montenegro. I can only assume he's cheering on Montenegro against Wales tonight in the Euros. Stell, Mr. Maynard, we had him on the show. Very grateful to him for a full hour at the start of the season. And I think that the overwhelming consensus there from the flock was that he spoke very well, man of integrity, and everybody clearly wanted him to do well. But I guess the question mark was over results. Clearly had to show not just an upturn, but I think a fairly significant upturn on last season in the context of a whole new defence and the owners identifying areas and bringing quite a lot of players in. Look, we know it's only opening games, and we're probably, we're 1/7, 1/8 of the points total we will need to be looking at for this season. Is there any surprise on your start that we're one of only 2 unbeaten? Did you think that with the players we'd signed, we would be getting it right early doors? What's your take on the job Stuart's done in the summer, pooling these players together and getting, I guess, the level of results you spoke about, 2 points a game, that we would be looking for this season? Because let's be honest, promotion is the aim this year, and it's a very good chance when you look at the teams that we're competing against. There's a very good chance of being able to achieve that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, you can't be anything but impressed, I don't think. I think even the most sort of stubborn Maynard out fan from last season, when the results weren't going well, even the most stubborn one would still insist that, oh no, he's not the man for the job, when we're unbeaten at the start of the season. Where that's the thing with football is you can't make too much of a fixed position, because the game is always changing. Form is temporary, all that sort of thing. So I think what he's done, and I would say this about any manager or head coach, to be fair to all of them, you have to sort of allow them transfer window. For me, I think you have to allow them. Now, I know with Knott's model, it's not just purely Stuart Maynard, so you've got to give Richard Montague some props as well for the job he does and the whole collective behind the scenes. But Stuart Maynard, as a head coach, as any manager or head coach knows, it's their head, their name above the door, and it's them that people throw opinions about. So if the team loses, you're a terrible coach, terrible manager. And if the team wins, you're a great coach and a great manager. That is just the nature of it. So given what's happened in the summer, given, we spoke about it, before, that there was, we had the banners in the Kop, didn't we, at the back end of last season, which is never good to see. But that's only generated by people's opinion on what they're seeing on the pitch. The results weren't great, so they express their opinions. I bet if you go and ask them people now, the least stubborn ones of them will say, no, actually, he's done well. Credit to him. So you can't say anything different. He's done well. When he's had time in the summer, the pressure was on. I think we all knew that had we had the reverse sort of start, and don't get us wrong, we're not, we haven't won the league at this stage. We played 5 games. But had we lost the first 5 games, you could absolutely bet your bottom dollar that knives would be out and questions would be being asked. And Stuart would have known that as well. That everyone at the club would have known that people don't have their heads in the sand. They've obviously got to answer questions and do the PR and do the media, and try and portray everything's going, how we want it to, or we know where we need to address, and we're going to do that. But the proof's in the pudding. He's had the summer to address things and work with the players and work with the new players, work with the existing players are there, and tweak things and change things slightly to how he wants them done. And the result of that is 5 games unbeaten in the league. I'm putting the cup game to one side, but 5 games unbeaten in the league. How can you not go, yeah, credit to him? Things are going really well.
Indeed. Ian Cook, he says, thankfully, the owners didn't listen to the experts who wanted Stuart out. They've backed him, and I'm confident he will repay them by taking us to promotion. Stuart is prepared to listen and experiment. ZO, the starting lineup is made up of so many new players. The hope is it will continue to improve for us players and manager get to know each other better. Andy McIntosh, whilst always wanting Stuart to do well, I have been undecided about the appointment. I'm therefore really pleased everything is coming together for Stuart. It must have been a very difficult period. Andrew Blatherwick, we've conceded less goals in 5 games than we did in our first game last season. Bass and Bedo look really solid. James says, I'm very grateful I don't support a club with owners that have a Watford-style approach to head coach recruitment. I totally agree with that, James. The only caveat I would say to that, I'm of a generation where Notts and Watford were both in the top flight of English football, and Watford have kind of weathered the past 2 decades, even with their managerial approach, a hell of a lot better than we has. we have as a club. But I think that's a different argument as to people of certainly of a certain age who believe Notts are playing at a substantially lower level than the size, stature, status of the club might otherwise suggest. But that's another argument for another night. We're talking here about Stuart, and I don't see too many people not saying that they're very satisfied and very happy with the start that's been made. Obviously, says Adam Kent, I would love a win on Saturday, but would take an away draw at Bromley. Ian G, our starting 11 on Saturday only had 3 faces from last season, did it? If I recall correctly. Each player brought in an upgrade from those out the door. Maynard and his team done a good job sorting things out. I think as well, and I think Chloe mentioned this with Richard Montague, this is a personal view. I think you will find that both our last 2 head coaches had minimal, might be a strong word, but let's just say a limited input into the choice of players. Clearly, both Luke and Stuart are involved in that process, but I think you will find this is more of a continental model where the recruitment is principally led by the owners, the data model, and Mr. Montague, and then kind of handed over to the head coach and the coaching staff to work with. So I think in many respects, recruitment, the continuity of recruitment is down to the executive at the club rather than the head coach. And I think that's the model that the brothers want to perpetuate and to continue. Nigel Cameron, I wasn't convinced Stuart was the right man last season, but the summer signings and recent results are starting to make me eat my words. Wayne Wilkins, humble pie for some of you, served with a garnish of a clean sheet or 2. Essie Kent, I think he sent this already. What's the situation with injuries this week? This becomes an increasing talking point, Stel. And I think, there's a lot of things we really like and enjoy about the way the owners run it. I think it's fair to say there's an economy of information that comes out from the coaching staff or anyone connected with the club when it comes to injuries. So clearly lots of people would love to know how bad is Jody, Dan, and the usual phrase is bit of a niggle, nothing serious. Can you shed any more light on this or not?
I can shed absolutely no light on it whatsoever because it's the same line that we get told as well. And people know, I'm sure, but the reason why they're so loath to give out any detailed information, particularly on key players, because opposition are listening. If you say, oh, Jody's going to be out for 3 weeks and Dan's out for 4 weeks or vice versa, and I'm not saying there that is not inside of it, that is just me putting a number on it. Opposition listen to that and can set up accordingly. Right, they're not going to have them, they're not going to have him, and they can set up. What they might do is send out some misinformation and make a team think that they're not going to be available when they are. But there's no benefit in that. I think you're just easier keeping your powder dry, keep your cards close to your chest. Like I say, you try and read between the line. Niggles is you're talking days or weeks. Anything more than that is you're into the months kind of thing. But no, we don't know anything differently than what we report and what we're told.
Yeah, I remember in my very early days at Leicester as the press officer, then Brian Little was my first manager. And as the press officer, you're trying to get information to pass on to the press, and so will be injured. So you can, Brian, how long's Cole Muggleton out? And he said, look, Paul, he said, we never put a public date on it. He says, because the moment it comes out that someone's out for 4 weeks, he says that player subconsciously acclimatizes themselves to them out for 4 weeks. And he said, I don't want that. I want them champing at the bit, thinking it might be possible. But the moment you tell someone they might be out for a while, subconsciously they believe, clearly if you had an op, different, but that was always his view. So he would never give anything much out at all on injuries, and clearly Notts take a view that they're going to be quite economical. None of us really know. We all studied the protocol sheet from the FA last week, didn't we? And I was quoting 7 days super enhanced, 12 days enhanced. I think it's 21 or 31 if you're a Sunday morning footballer or whatever. And let's be perfectly honest, none of us really have a clue as to where Alessandro will be available for Saturday. In some respects, a protocol might be a useful one to put him to keep him at the starting lineup, and so you just Didsey keeps going. So there's not an urgency to get him back. Chloe, you spoke a little bit about Stuart there. You are the younger generation of Notts fans. What's going through their minds at the minute? Because when we did a straw poll on the show at the start of the season, previous years, we're going to win it. We're going to win it by Christmas. First season back in the league. Well, we're bookies' favourites. If we're not in the top 3, I'll be disappointed. Blah, 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 blah. This year, people's expectations were noticeably lower. Well, if we can just about make the playoffs, I think we'll be 10th. I think we'll be 11th. So I don't think there was a great expectancy level at the start of the season compared to previous seasons. I suspect it's going through the roof now. Where would you be?
I don't like to say anything too early and manage expectations as such, mainly because, especially with how tight the league was last year, anybody can kind of make a run from February onwards. I mean, Christmas, quite clearly, isn't that great of a pointer from where we were to where we finished. I mean, it's halfway through the season, and we always say 10 games is your first point, Christmas, and then you go into Easter, and then you go into your last 10 or so games. But to me, yeah, of course, I want to be up there by Christmas, and I want to carry it on. I think playoffs is still a great standard. I do think that it might be an even tighter league this year with some of the big teams going up last season. But we can't underestimate the teams that are still in this league this season. And like I say, anybody can nick them playoff positions right until the wire. So I think managing my own expectations, I don't like to get excited too early, but just ride the wave. It's nice to be excited when we're playing well and we're winning, and just keep it going as long as we possibly can. But yeah, it's hard because of course you want to look at these pointers and they do mean something. But at the end of the day, you can hit February and you can be kind of off everyone's radar, 13th, 14th, as long as the points are tight, obviously. You can kind of go swimming towards the end. But yeah, look, we'll carry on with if you don't lose games, you win the league. And about it, I'm sure at one point or another when we play the more informed sides, then we'll see. But so I think the first loss will be a really important marker, actually, rather than X amount of games in. I think the first loss is massive, and the manner in which we lose and the manner in which we then turn around for the next game and the next couple of games. So yeah, of course I'm excited. We're winning games. We're looking good. We've got a whole new team virtually, and still some of our best signings from last season. But I still think it'll be a tight league. And like I say, Christmas isn't that all important point in the season. Anything can happen from there. So yeah, I think everyone's just managing their own expectations really, and not getting too ahead of themselves like we have done before.
Ian Haywood says team rotation by Stuart keeps the opponents guessing as to what is expected of Jody, Dan Crowley and Jatta in terms of starting lineups. Andy Easton is quite correct. At one point last season, the gaffer did do a presser specifically about those in the treatment room. That's why they did the big video of it. You're quite right, Andy, they did. A little bit kind of against the grain as normal. Joe Crabtree says Stuart keeps up the current form for another 5 games and will be panicking when his name is linked to vacant jobs. Fickle game, football. You're not wrong there, Joe. Ian G, the squad, barring big injury problems, is certainly good enough for at least a playoff place. Adam Kent, very true, Chloe. Look at Doncaster over the last 12 months. Yeah, football is very fickle. We know that, Stel. And we're kind of extrapolating things from 5 games this season and thinking, even if we don't play that well, we're bound to get this, we're bound to get that. In any way, shape or form, has these opening games given you more of a sense of optimism that promotion can be achieved this season?
I would slightly. maybe, but again, only because we're unbeaten after 5 games, which you couldn't say with any certainty that's the case when you've got new players or so many new players, such a change around in the personnel. I was hopeful, and I said before the start of the season, I would still hope for us to be playoffs or better this season. And that was before a ball's kicked. And I'm not going to change it now because we're 5 games in. Like I said, there's a long, long way to go, and you've never got anything in football or in sport until you actually achieve it, until it's in the bag. So we've achieved nothing more than a decent start. So we won't get carried away with it. We'll keep working. Hopefully the players will, but just keep that level of performance. But the optimism is there that the quality we've seen, the togetherness, the sort of robustness of the team, sort of, I'm going to say defensive ability, because I'd say we look a bit more robust in the early part of this season. Like I say, it's over 5 games. Let's wait and see what we're saying after 46 games. But the early signs are promising. Results apart, the performance levels have shown that sky is the limit. It really is. Chloe's dead right with what she says. It's going to be a tight division. It generally always is. And with the big clubs or the bigger budget clubs going up last season, that means it's available for any one of a dozen teams or more. So why not Notts? Why not Notts, with the quality that we've shown, with the quality we know we've got, given a bit of luck, given a bit of form over the next 8 months? Why not Notts? It's there for us. Like I say, again, let's manage expectation and not say we're going to run away with the league, but there is a chance. So let's, you want to harness everybody. The biggest problem at the start of the season was you did have a bit of a split in the camp about, is Stuart Maynard the man? We conceded loads. We fell away so badly last season. But as Chloe mentioned, that helped to manage expectation for this season. So after 5 games, let's just heap a load of expectation and pressure onto the players, onto the squad. Let's go, no, good start. Go on, keep playing the good football that we're seeing, keep getting the performances that we want, the robustness, the solidity, sort of defensive side of the game, the winning the ball back, the press, because that's great to see. Let's keep it going. Let's not add extra pressure, but let's also go with optimism and go, do you know what? It could be there for us this season. Who knows?
Well, let's hope for a first win at Bromley in 5 attempts. Chloe, Stell, thank you ever so much indeed for tonight. Thank you to everyone, to the 490 plus travelling media, lucky ones who have got tickets for Saturday at Bromley. Enjoy the trip down there. Look forward to seeing you there. We will be back as normal on Monday of next week. Thank you very much indeed. Good night from Chloe and good night from Stell.
Cheers. Good
Thanks,
night.
Rob.